Just a moment. Just a moment. Maybe I'm off for a second.
Yes, okay. I'm going to also adjust my camera a bit. Seems a bit crooked. I think that's better.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, fine.
How was your weekend?
No. Yeah, for no reason. I didn't feel good. The weather is great, and I had no plans, but I just felt shitty. So
Yeah,
even now, well, I just want to do nothing.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I can't tell you why. What thought is behind?
I also had to take it. I did a bunch of things, but at the same time, I had to take it slow and just like take a bit of time off and just in the evening said like, okay, I'm not gonna continue working. I'm just gonna watch something and just kind of like
Yeah.
really slow, not
Really,
even
I was really
like
thinking,
active or
I'm not doing
outside.
anything.
Yeah.
You're the same? Okay.
Yeah, and like we're still both feeling very emotional here. And then I was listening to the astrology, and he was also saying, because I felt this full moon last week very strong, like last weekend, very strong. And even like the days leading up to it, I was feeling like super emotional
Yeah.
all the time. And like he said, like, yeah, it's still like it's not fully like finished, it's the energy is still there, and I can also still feel it. It's not as bad as it was before, but I can still feel it like very easily emotional and just kind of
Oh,
like
yeah. Same here. Same here.
tired quite easy. Like
Yeah.
a lot is still happening, so don't beat yourself up over it. It's
Mm,
not abnormal, and a lot of people are still feeling it. So
good. Good.
but yeah, that being said, I do have a bunch of things that I want to teach today.
I'm here.
I'm not sure if I should mute you or not, since it's just for you. Maybe it's not necessary.
No,
Um, so
I behave.
yeah, you behave, and if you're bad, I mute you anyways. Yeah, because today I want to do my take on sexual education, basically, because yeah, I really wanted to include this because I feel like we've all had terrible sexual education, yet
Mhm.
it is so important because our sexual energy is our life force energy, our creative energy. They're all synonyms for exactly the same word. So this is, yeah, so important if you think about it in that way. And yet nobody teaches anything about it ever, except for some biology and some don't get pregnant and be safe kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Not that that's not important to understand, but um at the same time, nobody wants to teach it, nobody wants to get that taught to them. And our parents, they could only pass on what they were taught, which was basically nothing.
Yeah.
So it's like this never ending story of nobody understanding what they're doing, basically.
Oh, yeah.
So there is so much more to it than that, and I just really felt like it's time to break that cycle, especially when it comes to parenting ourselves. And then hopefully the people who have younger people in their lives can also kind of start passing it on and give people a really different idea about sexuality and what it is. Because right now, most people's sexuality is basically shaped by trauma, programming, and conditioning from our disconnected state of being. And if sexual and life force energy are the same, which they are, then that's a very big problem, isn't it? And even, like very well-known teachers in this field often miss this. Like Teal Swan, for example, she has said that no matter how much trauma healing and integration she has seen people do, their sexuality kind of stays distorted. They are still like stuck in that program and she can't reach it. And today I want to explain what I believe is the reason for that and how we can actually begin to change it. Because I do not believe it's unchangeable. I just believe it's coming from a different level, or it should be addressed from a different level than it is, because shadow work and this work that I want to explain to you today, they go hand in hand, but one cannot replace the other. So, and I want to be clear that when I like talk about changing people's sexual programming, that I'm not talking about changing somebody's sexual orientation. Okay, it's not from that perspective. I don't think there's anything wrong with being gay or being straight or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about here. Actually, because my personal belief, which I based upon sacred geometry and mathematics and my understanding of how the universe works and what a human being is and how we are fragments of the whole, I actually believe that we're all kind of bisexual, because they call sexuality like this sliding scale, which I think is kind of correct. And everybody is somewhere on that scale. And it can be like 0.00001 or like even a lot more, or 99.999999 or whatever, or somewhere there in between. But you can never be 0 or 100, because they're the same point. It's like if you look at a circle, 0 degrees and 360 degrees is actually the same degree. So I believe everybody is somewhere on that scale, and some people are almost entirely straight and some people are almost entirely gay, but there's still always that tiny little margin that you cannot avoid, because we're everything. So if we're everything, we always have both components. And for some people, that's a very large of one and a very small of another. And for some people, it's more like half or whatever. But everybody's kind of everywhere, somewhere on that spectrum. And I do not talk about changing that spectrum, but what I am talking about is changing or working on the fact that a lot of people have taken parts of that spectrum that they're on, repressed or distorted, or something went wrong along that. So I don't want to change anybody in their sexual orientation or whatever, but it might be that your sexual orientation isn't exactly what you thought it was, that there is a part that you have denied and disowned. But it's not about changing that. It's not about getting people to stop being gay or anything. When I'm talking about sexual programming, I'm talking about the societal conditioning, all that trauma that we have gotten imprinted in our system that now kind of dictates how we experience sexuality, what kind of turns us on, and in how many ways so many of those things are kind of distorted and have nothing to do with how our sexual energy works. And so over the last few weeks, we've been working with the fascia, and we have created some space in our systems, and we can be more present with our bodies. So this is why right now learning to work with this energy is kind of a next step, because we now have a little bit of this capacity to start doing this work. It's kind of like if you have a hoarder's house that's just like packed full of things and you can't really get anything out. First, you kind of have to make some, pathways and a little bit of space so you can get around, so that you can start clearing like the big junk out. So that's kind of what we've been doing. We're creating some space so that we actually now can start clearing out like bigger portions. And it's like the containers have arrived and now we can start kind of filling them up.
Good.
So for me, this has been a theme that like has been with me for like a really long time. And it kind of captured my attention as probably one of the first things ever to capture my attention. Because I come from Belgium, the Flemish region, and when I was a kid, everybody there was Catholic by title, but not by practice. So everybody still had like a baptism, first communion, second communion, and they would go to church for Christmas, but that basically was it. For the rest, churches were empty. Nobody was like doing anything except for my mother. My mother, she was like one of the only people who was like still active. She would like go read mass and teach catechismus to people and so all of that stuff. So I got dragged to church quite a lot, and I kind of liked being in the building. I could like feel things. I didn't understand at the time. Now I understand why that is. But I also kind of liked the role of a priest. Like they would teach things, and like not all of it was bad. Some of it like made sense and so on. It's like, yeah, sure, of course, cares for people, treat people right, all of those things. It was kind of like the preaching, and I kind of like that. And I wanted to become a priest, and then they told me you can't because you're a girl, and I was like, you have to become a nun. I was like, I don't want to be nun. Like, who wants to be a nun? I want to be a priest. No, you can't. Like, why? Because I'm a girl. Like, it didn't make any sense. But I was still pretty young at that time. I was maybe like 6 or 7 years old, so I was like not that rebellious yet. And I became like a altar girl. Even like one day a week before school, they would have like short masses that would like be like 20 minutes to half an hour. So one day I would get up half an hour earlier, and I would like every week go to mass to like be altar girl. And it wasn't that time and some other time, because there wouldn't be like any sermons or anything, but I must be there on a Sunday with my mom or something. I don't remember exactly. But at that point, our priest, he was talking about Mary Magdalene and basically how she was a whore. And at that point, like something kind of snapped inside me. I must have been like maybe 10 years old or something. And, I was lucky because like none of the child abuse stories of church were out there at that time. And I never had any bad experience. We had like this one priest, but he wasn't actually the priest. He was actually an army priest, because I lived in an army town. He was kind of a retired army priest who was in to help. And he was this very nice gentleman, and he was like very well taken care of himself, but he wasn't like the official priest. He was not preaching or anything. But our official priest, he was kind of like this very short, fat guy, and really the kind of guy that you thought like you had to become a priest because you would never get a woman in your life. But that was a type of man that was, and he was kind of a nice man. Like I said, he had no thing for little girls or anything, but he was just like fat, not taking care of himself, greasy hair, cared about football and beer and fries. And there's nothing wrong with that, but also nothing that I associated with like an example of divinity or anything of that matter. So I was like, this man was kind of disgusting. And he is
I just get some water. You can
sure.
tell. Yeah, just start. I'm here.
Okay.
This man.
Yeah. And I was just like, this whole church thing that we go to, this whole Catholic church, it is built upon the idea that there was a guy called Jesus who was born as the Son of God, who did miracles, who had infinite wisdom, who was telling everybody how to live. And that guy chose a woman, and you are calling her whore. Like, it does not make any sense at all.
Yeah.
Like, now you know better than this guy that this whole church was built upon, because you're judging her, but he liked her. And I was like, this, like, it just like, it was too big of a dissonance, basically. And it just like snapped. And I was like, well, I kind of understand the power dynamics of the church already by that age and so on. So I was like, dude, what is it with you people and women and sex? And what is it that you don't want people to know? There must be like a ginormous secret that you are trying to hide from people, because otherwise you would not go to these lengths. You would not put so much energy and effort in it. There's a million things you could talk about. You're actually shooting yourself in the foot, because this is what like made me like snap definitively and like stopping to believe that it made any sense. And the whole institution kind of got ruined just over this. So there must be a pretty big secret, and someday I'm going to figure it out. And that's basically what I want to try to explain today. Because we just seem to have everything backwards in our society. So many basic things we have backwards. Like, you go to the supermarket and we have something that we think of as normal vegetables, and then we have organic vegetables. But the normal vegetables are chemically sprayed, and the organic vegetables are natural grown, yet we pretend like this is the weird one, the special one.
Yeah.
And yes, compared to the massive amount of other stuff that we have in the supermarket, it kind of is, but it's still completely backwards. And it's the same thing that we've done with sex. We treat what we see as in porn, we think of it as normal sex, and it's everywhere, and it shapes how people think about sex, what they think it looks like, how they think it's done. And it's very damaging. We'll get into that in a little while. And then there is this other thing that people talk about as sacred sex and tantric sex. Like, it's this huge special thing for special people that is like unattainable for everyone else. That's like for, I don't know, like the chosen ones or something. And again, it's like this is what should be normal. This is what should be thought of as normal sex. And yes, you have to develop a bit of capacity for it. And yes, if you have never practiced it in that way, you might want to need some practice to get there. But it's not unattainable for any regular human being. And it's not like a huge, undoable thing. And this is just like very distorted and sick, usually on many, many, many levels. So it's kind of the same thing where we think of the very sick version as normal, and the normal version like it's for the special people. They need organic, they need tantric. Like, it's this whole thing that we have like very, very back. And it's just kind of sad. But what is it then that we should start to understand? We should start to understand that sex is not about physical friction, but it is about the circulation of energy in our bodies. The best example for this is the male orgasm, to understand this. Because most men, they only know friction-based stimulation. So they need a physical touch on the penis to have it stimulated, often in combination with like visual stimuli, porn-like stuff, or fantasy-like stuff, or whatever, but that's all kind of visual stimulation. Because they have no capacity to circulate that energy. And for a man, that energy is literally produced in his genitalia. So it builds and it builds and it becomes uncomfortable and it has nowhere to go. So it's like, because this entire system is clogged and they don't know how to use it. And I don't care how big or small your penis is, that energy is meant for much more than that tiny organ. So it becomes like, that's why men have this constant need for sex, to have this ejaculation, to kind of discharge it through that friction and get it out. But if you build the capacity to circulate that through your entire system, it actually becomes healing. It becomes energizing. It becomes aliveness. You don't even need to release it. So if you have like this friction-based sex with an ejaculation, the energy, it just like discharges and disappears. And that's why men afterwards like completely like sacks of potatoes, basically, like, oh, no sun, and now then fall asleep. But if you have like this circulation-based sex, it moves through you, it heals you, it feeds your entire system. But most people, they are desensitized and their whole system is basically clogged. That's why we have all of that sexual distortions, the addictions, the depravities, the crazy fantasies. It comes all from this exact issue. People don't have the capacity to circulate the energy. And when you can't feel it, you become dependent on what you see. And that's when the stimulus becomes visual. It stops coming from the feeling, it becomes like this focused visual, and we take it in. And that's why porn is so powerfully addictive and so destructive at the same time. Because if it's based on friction and the visual stimuli, the chemical reactions that happen to create it, they have drug-like effects, which means the effects wear off, the system becomes desensitized, you need more, you need stronger, you need it more often. And that leads to more extreme content, more disconnection from your body, more numbness, which creates even more dependence on it, because then we need it to feel anything. And the crazy thing is that we do it because we are trying to reach something that we will never get in that way. But there is something else that can give you that, which is if you allow it to come through the feeling and through the energy flow. So when the feelings, the sexual arousal doesn't come from the images or the physical stimulation in and of itself, but comes from the feeling, from the energy circulating in the body, it's not really about this performing of doing anything. It's more about the presence. It stops about getting to somewhere, getting to that orgasm, and it becomes about being with what is. It can become an act of intimacy with yourself or with another, through your breath, through your presence, through your movement, through your sound, through your energy. And if you can be present with it and let it move through you and letting it move whatever it needs to move, and letting it clear out whatever needs to be cleared out. It heals as it goes, and it's endless. It's not this one way directional street of trying to get there and get rid of it. It becomes this constant circulatory flow. And there is no drug effect to that. It's life itself that's running through you. It's kind of like we have all these receptors inside of our system that respond to the drugs because we can have all of these natural things within ourselves that also use these receptors. We do not have cannabis receptors because of the cannabis plants. We have these receptors because we can make some of these chemicals ourselves. But there is a difference where the chemicals is coming from or why they are produced.
Mm.
And so if you allow that to happen, you also have chemical reactions happening in your body, but they don't have that drug-like effect. They is not something that like I need more of this, or I need like it's like wearing off, or I'm getting dependent on it, because there is no drug in the world.
Sorry.
There
Yeah.
is no drug in the world that can get you basically as high as this. It's a total different level. This is the level that we're trying to reach when we're trying to take drugs. This is where we kind of subconsciously hope that it can take us. But that's why you can use like the drugs and the medicine and all of these things to open certain things, but you always had that capacity within yourself. And this will magnify that capacity times 100. And it will actually take you there, and because the substances are just like, yeah. So in that way, it's more like a shamanic healing medicine, basically, instead of like the Western drugs, where it's like, yeah, it will start to do a bunch of shit. But that's exactly it. It will also start to bring all of the shit out, because you can have like a lot of not so pleasant things come up if you take some ayahuasca. And it's the same thing. You can have a lot of not so pleasant things come up when you practice this. But if you're willing to go through that, it kind of you become untouchable for the control systems. That's why the church had to repress it so badly, because they work on keeping you in fear. They bank on you not wanting to feel that stuff. And so our reaction normally to fear or to feeling something with too much intensity is that we contract. We try to shut it down. That's why we do it. That's why it works. We contract and we close that space that we've been creating over the past weeks. You know, we close it down, and then it stops, and then we don't feel it anymore. Because if it can't move, we don't feel it. And this is not something esoteric. This is literally physical. It's what the entire traditional back school, for example, is based upon. Like the things they teach you if you have like pain in your back, what they do to try to get you out of pain is they try to make you build so much muscle that basically encapsulates the area that you have pain in, so that it wouldn't move anymore. Because if there's so much muscle holding it together, there's no more movement inside, and then you don't feel the pain. So they don't fix anything, but they just try to stop the movement so you won't feel the pain. And it's exactly the same thing with the energy moving through you. If you close the space and you don't allow it to move, then you won't feel it. But it doesn't fix any of the problems. But if you like start practicing with this energy, with this life force, it's so strong. It's so intense. It's a lot. It's overwhelming. It will start to bring up all of these things that you have to get used to and allow in your system to move and stay open at the same time. that if you're practicing this and you're learning this and you're building this capacity, it's just like any training. If you go to the gym the first times and you try to like push 20 kilos and it feels like it's going to break your arms basically. But you know, once you can lift 50 kilos and you take one of 20 kilos, it's like nothing. And it's kind of the same thing. If you get used to this kind of intensity and holding space for these emotions to move through you with this help of this life force energy, and you can hold so much of this powerful energy, the things that used to feel like scary and intense, they now become like this 20 kilo weight. This was like, I'm used to pushing 50 now. Like, what is this? Like, this is nothing. It doesn't have the same grip on you. So that's why they don't want us to know that this is possible, that you have access to this. Because once you go like that, the whole fear thing and the whole like, it just doesn't work anymore. And when that doesn't work anymore, they can't control you anymore. And so the first time when I got into spirituality, I learned that there was something like Tantra. And then I thought like, oh, maybe they will have, you know, these answers that I'm looking for since I was 10 years old. But I was doing the fascia at the time and like I had no extra money left to do other things at the same time. I was already doing university and fascia. That was like plenty. But then at the same time, I don't know, I never really found the right thing. And then by accident, I ended up on Sasha Cobra, who taught me about this energy. And then I started like putting all the rest of the puzzle pieces together myself. And the thing with Tantra is it's also coming from ancient religions. It has also been distorted in many ways. And it has become very dogmatic. And dogmas really are not interesting to me. And practicing something because someone said something that it's the right thing to do without being able to explain why. All of that things don't really work for me. I only care about what actually works and what actually builds this healing capacity in our body. And that kind of brings us back to Teal Swan and her commentary about how no matter how much trauma work people do, the sexuality stays distorted. Even if the trauma roots are healed. And that's a very important one. Because I have so much in here and I should have made better bullet points. But that's why I said they're kind of compatible. Because this work, it will start to clear out the energy, basically, that's stuck in the body. But it's kind of like if you have a wound with a splinter and you don't take the splinter out, you can keep pushing the pus out, but there will become more pus. So the more that you can take the splinter out and take the pus out, that's how they should be combined. But it's like if the root is healed, if you take the splinter out, but if you haven't built this capacity to circulate this energy, you're still experiencing your sexuality through that limited capacity, through that programming. Because that's the only thing we know in this society, when you've never like developed this. So even though the trauma is taken away, you have nothing to replace it with. And even if you were to try to make another imprinting, you could never, that new imprinting would always lay on top of the old imprinting. Because that first imprinting, that's why it's an imprinting, because it's like the deepest it can go. And if you then like try to kind of recreate this process that creates imprinting from the outside in, it's never going to get through. That's why it feels like it's unchangeable. But imprinting can be overwritten through embodiment from the inside out, not by another imprinting from the outside in, but through embodiment from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
You can develop this new capacity, and then when you start experiencing this in your body on this whole other level, and it allows all of this healing to move through you, it's kind of like it starts to push it out from the inside out. And it's also kind of like, it reminds me of, if you hear about these addiction tests that they did with like rats, where they would put them in like this miserable tiny cage, and they would give them regular water and like drug water, and all of the rats would just only drink drug water to drug themselves all the time. If
Yeah,
they
but then there was the change experience, blah blah blah. I know.
then
Where
they
they made a rat
yeah,
zoo.
they put them in the fun big cage
Yeah,
with
yeah.
other
Mm.
rats and so on and so on, and they give them still the same
Yeah,
choice. They
and they
just stop being interested in the drug water,
yeah.
because their experience now allows for something else that is even better to them than whatever that drugs is doing.
Yeah,
So it's
it came because there were war veterans and they got heavily injured in Vietnam, for example, and they got high doses of morphine, and a high percentage didn't get addicted. And why do some people get addicted on morphine and some not? So that was the question.
yeah, I understand. But I'm just trying to give it as an example
Yeah,
as
yes, of
to
course. Please move on.
as to like what would happen, whereas this new experience of your sexual energy in your system would be the equivalent from that fun cage,
Hmm.
that as before, even though your trauma is resolved, you're still kind of trapped in this tiny little cage with nothing to do, and no other way to experience anything. So that's why the addiction kind of still remains.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that's then, if you have that capacity to do that like within yourself, it makes you sovereign, it makes you unmanipulable.
Yeah.
That's the word.
Good. Sounds good.
So then I kind of want to address the male orgasm, because this is one of these things. Like I said, in Tantra, there are a lot of dogmas. It is this thing that is like probably the most opposite of what I'm trying to explain. So I want to create a little bit more clarity about this, because for women, it's more normal to have like a larger experience. That for men, yeah, since this is a theory lesson, I just want to kind of get in theory of it, because it's like very kind of twisted. Because I've seen a lot of people come to me, and either it's not working anymore, it's not erecting, it's not ejaculating, it's ejaculating too fast, or they've heard about tantra and then they will lose their energy in their ejaculation, so now they're trying to stop ejaculating. And there's all of these things that I go like, what are you talking about? Why are you thinking about it in this way? You're coming from the wrong angle here.
Mm-hmm.
Because the whole thing is, an ejaculation is not the same as an orgasm. An orgasm is an energetic state of climax, kind of like a lot of energy has built up. But like I said before, because the energy isn't going up in the system anymore and it stays down there in the little penis, not a lot of space. And all of that energy needs to be like in that tiny space. So as soon as that orgasm kind of start to build in that tiny space, there is no place for that to go. So it just triggers it out, and it kind of smashes ejaculation and orgasm so close together because it's just in that tiny little space of the penis. And so that's why that's all that men know these days. That's why it's the 3 seconds and it's over. That's why that's the rest of the experience is hardly anything they enjoy, or just always with this goal of like getting to that. But then again, the not ejaculating or you lose your energy, although there is some basis for it, if you are frustrated or stressed about the fact that you might ejaculate by accident, that will cause you so much more energy loss than the ejaculation itself that it kind of becomes completely obsolete and absurd. It's more kind of like a symptom than the problem kind of situation. So that really isn't the point. The point is that we have no room to circulate that energy, so it needs to get discharged. It has to go somewhere. And that's not why I usually start explaining people, because they come in and say, I have this problem. I ejaculate too fast, or I can't, or blah. And then I say like, well, okay, stop. You're asking me to help you fix something that is not actually the problem. Like, it's like you're asking me to become a better driver because you don't want to like keep smacking into the car in front of you. But the thing is, you're driving on a crazy road, like one of these roads like in India or Egypt, where there is like way too many cars and nobody's following any rules, and there's just like 3 lanes and 6 rows of cars, and they're just going like and super insane. And you try to leave some space, but then another car cuts in front of you, and you want to become like this rally driver so that you can brake and you don't hit the car in front of you when it has to brake. But the whole problem is, either you build a bigger road so that more cars can be on there, or you make sure there are less cars in the road. That's a solution. Becoming a better driver is not a solution. It's not going to help. And you actually can do that. It's like your entire body should be like a swimming pool with like flowy water. But every time in your life when you've like repressed an emotion, had some kind of a trauma, just fragments, some part of you, it's like this whole pool now is filled with beach balls. It's like completely stuffed. And there's like no room for water to flow. You can't swim in it anymore. Like a few beach balls is not a problem, but now the whole thing is stuffed with beach balls instead of water. So what we need to do is we need to start clearing out those beach balls so that there can be water again in the pool, and that it can start flowing again, that it can start moving again, that you can start swimming in it again. And that is how we can use this work. That is during the process of allowing this energy to circulate, it will also start to clear all of these things out. But at the same time, it is a very simple practice. It is very hard for a lot of people, because to actually clear it, you have to feel it and you have to express it. And that's, again, given that the root has been dissolved and we're just talking about residue, basically. Then it can just be released through your sound, through your movement, through your breath, by allowing it to move through you. And it kind of becomes this high pressure cleaner system that starts to get all of this stuff out. This or like this kind of like, when I say like about the beach balls, it's kind of like the lotto balls, you know, you see them you see them going in that thing, always spinning, and then one starts to flip out and another starts to flip out and another starts to flip out. It's kind of like that kind of a visual that I always get with it. But again, like if we have the root still active, we have to make sure also to address the root. Otherwise, it will just keep, you know, filling back up. It's not the magic cure for all. That's why I said this, like shadow work, trauma healing, and this work, it goes hand in hand. Because this kind of clears out all the energy that was like shoved down in the system. But if there's other things that kind of keep festering, then it will just fill up again. And also to start to feel again, you know, we really have to open that hatch that we used to repress. And we cannot selectively repress. It's either open or closed. You cannot choose to repress the negative feelings and open to the positive feelings. So it's a all or nothing kind of situation, which means that a lot of the uncomfortable feelings will also come through that same pipeline as you're doing it. But that's part of the work. That's the healing of it all. And so it's that energy that we're going to work on moving through the body. The Kundalini that moves up the spine, feeding every chakra, spiraling up. And for men and women, they have different energetic poles. So I already touched upon the man's genitalia real quickly, which are their positive pole, which is where the energy is produced. For a woman, that's in the chest, that's the heart region, that's the breasts. And that is why if a man and a woman come together, the energy can actually circulate, because it moves from the man's positive pole up to the woman's positive pole and goes back. And that's how it's exchanged, basically. That's how it moves. And so that's, if we want to use it for healing practices, that's where we focus on. Because if we focus on there, that's where it's produced, and then we can have it produced and practice on letting it flow through our body, basically. Now, for a lot of people, because of all of these distortions, polarities can get reversed. So it happens quite often that women close up here and get very active down there, but it is a distorted form of sexuality, because for a woman it should be that she opens here. That's why a man, when he starts making love to a woman, he should start with her chest. It's like here that it should be activated, and then it will open kind of automatically down there. There shouldn't be like a whole lot of manipulation going on up there to happen. You should like actually have it here. But again, for women who have been desensitized, for women who've had like reversed polarities, it can be hard to allow this. Again, also there can be a lot of sadness, emotions, and anything stuck up here as well. And it is not what we usually accept within sexual acts, that like I have to like feel all of these emotions first, or like all of these things need to come out here first, and I just want my quick release. But all of these things are possible. But if you want to be in your healthy state, for a woman, the positive pole should be up here in the heart. For a man, it should be down here in his genitalia. For a man, you will also see like often man can be very sensitive in the nipples. It can be very stimulating for them. It's often a sign of kind of flip polarity. Not that it shouldn't do anything at all, but like it can be as well. So that is the practice that we want to set in motion on Wednesday, and that's why we are going to practice this. And then if you can start to allow that to happen first by yourself and just practicing it as a healing experience and kind of get used to it by yourself, if you then bring it to relationship with someone else, it's of such a different level of consciousness. There is really no place for all of these distortions or these kinks or like whatever. And I'm not judging anybody on what they're doing or what they like or anything like that. But it's kind of like one of these fail safes within the universe. I always feel was kind of like, well, if we don't level up in consciousness, we're also not going to get very far off this planet, are we? It's kind of like to get access to higher technology, you also need to evolve in consciousness. And it's kind of like this. And it's this very powerful purifying system. Nothing to do with like purity, but just like it can start to take so much out of your system, and it just gives you an entire new experience of life, of you, of your life force, of your creative energy force. And if you let that lead you, it also kind of becomes redundant for anybody else to tell you what to do, because we know kind of the technical aspect, we know what to do, otherwise we would have long been extinct. So all of the techniques and the like this and like that, and this works better and that works better, they all kind of become redundant when you start to understand how fundamental this is, and when you learn to work with that, and when you allow that to lead you, because that is just high levels of your essence that you're allowing to circulate through you. And so if you allow that to lead you the way and to start trusting in that, then anything else just becomes, I don't even know what a word for that is.
Superficial, maybe. Or...
yeah, like just kind of like superficial, crazy. Like you see, if you maybe already see that it doesn't make sense, but then like it makes no sense at all. Because it really takes you out of a lot of the trap that we trap ourselves in. And it's hard to explain because it is, like I've been trying to explain, a feeling experience. It is not a mental experience, a visual experience like we're so used to do. And it's why so many people struggle with it, because it's so far out of our concepts. It's so simple, so basic. But again, as soon as it becomes really simple and really basic, people kind of have this thing like, that can't work. And then the uncomfortableness comes, and we shut down. And like it's not a bad thing if it does, but it needs to become a conscious choice to try again and to try again and to try again. And each time you will get a little bit further. And you will just become a different version of yourself if you let it transform you from the inside out. It's kind of like now that if you can hold the space for it and you can start to like let it come, it kind of flushes all that stuff, start to flush it basically all out. And if it's like you can live from that space, you can relate from that space, you can have sex from that space, you can use it to create anything you need to create. So it is so much bigger than that very sad biology lesson we were given. Again, not that you shouldn't know about the technical aspect or the biology or the safety and the pregnancy prevention, because bringing in children unwanted is not a good idea. But
I know that's not a comparison at all.
That's why if you want to become, your own parent, I think it is very important that you start understanding this, and it is part of your capacity, and pass it on to these internal parts. Use it to help them to build up your own energy, to care for them, and to give yourself access to what was always your right to have, basically, because it is your energy and it's always flowing through you in some ways. But for a lot of people, it's like a very sad, like trickling little creek, while you have the capacity for an entire river.
Wow. Okay. Never heard about this.
Yeah. I know for most people it isn't. And then the people who usually teach about
I heard Thiel mention it.
Yeah.
So he said sexual energy is life energy. But what now? So what do we do with it?
Yeah, exactly. And she has no answer to it either, because she goes like, well, I keep doing trauma work with it, but that fundamental thing isn't changing. And it's because it still has to go through a very tiny, narrow, small thing that we've experienced up till now, that only works through this friction and this mental stimulation and this idea of, oh, I see this turns me on. Because there is nothing happening inside of our body that we have connection with that is supposed to make that happen. So it's coming from, because we had no practice of this energy, and so it is there, it is building, and then at some point something happened that caused some kind of disturbance and kind of activated that energy, and that's what kind of caused this imprint. We saw this, now we felt this, and now it's like imprinted. But because there never was any further development in ourselves, we're kind of stuck with that. We have literally no sexual development, or organs they develop, or hormones they start doing all lots of things. And we have this very sad biology lesson, and then showing a condom on a banana thing, but we have no sexual development. We do not build the capacity to circulate that energy in our body.
Yes.
I
liked all of those teachings. Yeah, in my life. Yeah, like any other.
And again, I am someone who tries to teach people for where we are at right now as a civilization, as a society, and all of those things, of what can actually help somebody who lives there. Because a lot of this tantra, it came from the East. It came from the old cultures in East India, those countries, where they had like this caste system. And you were born there and you will die there, and you could not get out of it. Nothing you could do could get you out of a caste. I don't know, maybe like, I don't even think there was like an emperor who could say like, you're promoted. Like it was
it was very rigid. Yeah,
you're born here and you will die here. So people had nothing to do but practice. And so they would go to a guru, and the guru say, practice this breathing, this meditation, this yoga, whatever. And people would just be constantly practicing. And then a few weeks later, they would go back and you say, no, practice this or whatever. And they would take people to processes, but they had nowhere to go. And then people from here, they went there and they said like, oh, well, this works and this kind of helps me. And I had like this problem and now it seems better. And I'm going to go back home and I'm going to start teaching people this. But then you take these teachings from this culture where there was no place to go, there was no ambition, there was just the practice and the routine of things, to a culture that has nothing but ambition, nothing but striving, nothing but trying to get more money. And so all of these teachings, they get completely distorted through this lens, become completely dogmatic. Half of the time they don't know why they're doing it. And as for some people it will help, and for some people it won't. But for a lot of people, especially since you're working with such a delicate topic like sexuality, there is this whole thing where it can all go awry very easily. And from what I've been seeing, even here in Sweden, in like the Facebook groups where I am, where I kind of make promotions for my therapy and so on, is like, there was this one guy who came to Sweden, and it was like the new tantra, but this is like, I don't know how that got created, but like I've seen a little bit of it, but basically that's just group sex on steroids or something. And there was this man who came here claiming to be some kind of tantra guru, and a bunch of people went in there and it just went along with everything they said, ended up completely traumatized. Then they went out starting to look for answers for their traumatization, and so they are now the main teachers here in Sweden that have like schools that teach about tantra or tantra therapy or whatever, because they got so traumatized by the first guy, basically. And there's just like recently like a documentary made about this. So it is a hard topic to work with, and it's so open then again to manipulation and predators and people with bad intentions and whatnot. But now I kind of lost my thread as to why I was telling this. Yeah, the kind of, again, I guess again, the danger of all of those dogmas from something that we cannot understand how those people in the East live their lives and why they practice the way they practice. And so I try to design it for people who are actually here and take that cultural element kind of away and bring it into something that actually can work for us without that dogma involved. And like I know from Matthias' stories, when he has his memories from 12,000 years ago, like what would go on in the temples, and like children's sexual education and sexual development would start from the age of 7, like from 0 to 7. And you understand why this is. From 0 to 7, they would be trained in emotions, because that's the time when all of our imprinting happens. That's why everything that we repeat in our lives is because of all of the emotions that we didn't deal with in those first 7 years. So all they did was, for the first 7 years of a child's life, was teach them about emotions and how to handle them. And then after that, what they would get is basically sexual education and sexual development, how to work with that energy.
Wow.
And then later on there would be like, and it would go far, because again, but that's kind of why I started to say, like, it's very important to frame it in our culture and where we're at right now, because there that was kind of like so normal. And then like when they were adults, or like young adults, or maybe, I don't know exactly, but maybe even late teenagers or something, like you would go to the temples, like the priestesses would be the horse. That's why like Mary Magdalene is still often called, like, that's where the whore thing comes from, because she was a priestess, and she was still a priestess from like some kind of I don't know, some kind of like lineage that still was trying to protect this ancient knowledge and would still pass it on, because the priestesses, they would be the ones who would teach people how to have sex, and some of it through practicing it with them.
Okay.
So that's just an entirely different culture. There would be like sometimes they would like assign them, like it would get a little from our perspective weird when it was like, yeah, you get assigned, you have to have sex with this person because you have this energy and he has this energy, and like you need to just like work through this energy, which goes quite far in my book, or somebody else gets to say what you have to do and who you have to do it with. But again, different culture, was very normal back then. But if we look where we're at right now, if we could just already start practicing letting this energy work through us and develop the capacity to hold it, then we can see where it can take us. Then we can see how, from this new beginning that we have now, how we can start to implement that, and how that
Look how
impact.
look how Osho distorted it. Yeah, you were
That's
only
what
allowed to. You you sex was allowed with anybody, but only once. So you don't get into a relationship. So
yeah. I don't know enough about it, but it's, again, it's the same thing. He was a human being. It went through his perspective. That's why it's so hard for me to teach about it, because I don't want to put my perspective on it. I don't want to go say this is right and this is wrong and you should do this and you shouldn't do this. I just want people to develop the capacity to let this energy go through them, so that it can start healing them from the inside out, so it can start clearing out the system more, so that they're less susceptible to all of this fear and so on. And so that instead of this contraction and this fear, they can like get open and have access to their own energy and their own essence, so it can come from the inside out, so that they, instead of not knowing what to do, they do know what to do, and nobody needs to tell them what to do.
Yeah, sounds really good.
Because they are like opening their own channel, they're bringing themselves into alignment, and so they can have access to what is in alignment for them, and not what somebody else tells them to do. If you decide you should only have sex with every person once, that's your decision. To go say everybody should do that, that's a dogma.
But I'm thinking about when I'm in a helpless situation, I always think, who can I ask, or what or immediately I know there were always people telling me what to do, and that was not working at all. So what I should do, it didn't work. So I was often at that point. So I can't go back at what did my parents teach me, because they were idiots.
Exactly. So we're trying to kind of rectify that here and give you more access to where the answers can be found.
Good.
And so, like I said, this is like, I try to really keep it to that basic, because we don't have the basics. So I don't see any point in going beyond the basic. And again, once you have the basic, the whole point is for you to become authentic, sovereign, and in your own power, so that you can know what's right for you, and nobody should tell you how you should have sex or who you should have sex with. Once you have that basic really down, you can figure that out yourself. So that's the whole idea. So that's what we want to start practicing in.
I'm absolutely open for it.
And again, like this, I think I have kind of taken you, or tried to have taken you through the thing. Like, use the sound, use the breath.
But then I had to change the location and let my friend's house. You have to know here I can't be loud.
But look, it's not always, again, it's not always necessary to be loud.
Okay, find a way.
So you can just stay home, be comfortable. And for most people, it's the hardest part is to get through that first thing, where you can allow yourself to kind of start making some kind of noise. You can put on some music, so that as long as your sound is normal.
But like, it's really
look, it's quite rare that people actually like, if you really get into it, it can get really loud. But for most people and who struggle, it's like most people, they're like talking to me like you're talking to me right now in their normal speaking voice, and they're like, oh, like, what is this lady talking about? Like, of course I can make a sound. And then they lie there and go like, so if you can just even just allow yourself to go like that, and if you turn on some music, your neighbors will not hear you over your music, okay? You have
Okay.
to get really loud, and if you feel like you really need to scream, you can always take a pillow, scream into the pillow, and then with some music on, they will be none louder or whatever. So I wouldn't
No,
worry
no,
about it too.
I just wanted to tell you that
I
it's
know.
a little bit difficult here.
So there's like things that go around it, but it's more important that you start to like allow it, and allow your body to kind of move with it, to keep breathing, to like kind of get the feeling of like, okay, now it's like something inside me is like kind of fighting it, trying to hold back. If you can just start to observe the reaction and then go like, okay, I'm closing down. Can I open myself up? Can I let it out? Can I like produce a sound that will start letting it out? Because that's the thing, it gets intense, but then if you allow it to come out, the intensity will just start to get down. But for most people, it's like it gets intense and then they close. And then things shut down again, instead of to say like, no, I'm gonna open up more, because it's like if there's like a lot of water pressure coming, you should open it more so it can get out and not close it. So then yeah, you can close it, but it's
Yeah,
then it
but
stays
this
there.
is all very theoretical. I don't know
Yeah,
how I will react. And
I understand.
yeah.
But I
So
always like just to talk people through it beforehand,
yeah, but
as
very
much
good.
as
I'm
possible.
very curious, and
Yeah.
yeah, definitely, yeah, that was very interesting. It opens new perspectives. Yeah, thank you. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
And maybe after the recording, we can have some small talk. I have some questions, but
Okay, sure.
after.
Let me see then, because I think I am done for today, so I can turn off the recording. There we go.